The book of Enoch describes this perfectly. And this book was left out of the Bible on purpose from our predecessors, but it describes the angels coming down and cutting all these giant trees down to flood out the Nephilim, the giants, these beings that stretched 4,500 feet tall. These trees would reach the heavens, and that's why you always see the flat mountaintops, because these were massive trees way back in the day. Giants, giant trees. This was a much bigger realm. And they came and they cut all this down because they wanted to get rid of the Nephilim. They wanted to get rid of the giants. It is said that there's about 200 of these trees that were cut down. And if you take a look around, that's pretty accurate. There could be even more. But the evidence is right in front of your face. And when you cut a tree down, water will start pouring out from the trees. But it's as above, so below. The water's above the firmament. This is where all the flooding came in. It was right after they cut the trees down was when we experienced this massive flood. And it wiped out all of the giants, all of the Nephilim. And this was mentioned, again, in the book of Enoch. And they left it out on purpose, guys. Like, they left this shit out on purpose because they don't want you to know the real origins of humanity and our true history. But the truth is always in plain sight. Peace and love.
What if our universe is just a drop in a cosmic ocean of countless universes? Today, we're exploring the multiverse theory. One popular multiverse model, called the eternal inflation theory, is rooted in the concept of cosmic inflation. After the Big Bang, our universe expanded rapidly, but according to this model, that expansion never stopped. Instead, it created bubble universes like ours throughout an ever-growing cosmic landscape. Another intriguing idea comes from string theory, which proposes that our universe is just one of many parallel branes existing within a higher dimensional space. Picture our universe as a slice of bread in an infinitely tall cosmic sandwich. Just don't ask for extra mustard on this one. Now, critics of the multiverse theory argue that it's untestable and strays from empirical science. After all, it's not like we can just take a stroll to the nearest parallel universe and say, "Hi neighbor." And even if we could, I am not sure that we should. In fact, different universes would have different laws of physics. Our biochemistry would be completely dysregulated as soon as we step foot in a different universe. We might simply and purely disintegrate. But the multiverse theory does offer a new perspective on the fine-tuning of our universe, suggesting that we might simply exist in a universe that's just right for life. Next time, we'll delve into the search for extraterrestrial life and the factors that make a planet habitable. Stay tuned.
What if they are hiding the Tartaria mud flood from us to cover up the fact that they intentionally erased them from history? The mud flood theory is a controversial hypothesis that claims that in the 18th or 19th century, a catastrophic event took place where a massive flood of mud covered entire cities and wiped out entire civilizations. The Tartarians were subject to this disaster and were wiped out completely. Now, the more sinister side to this story is that their entire existence was erased from history after this tragic event by the ruling elite. But why would they do that? Well, it is said that the Tartarians were known for their ability to create free energy from the atmosphere using their architecture. The ruling elite were not happy about this, as they had invested a lot of money into making energy into a business, and if everyone could access it for free, then they would be at a major loss. The main pieces of evidence we have to support this theory are the buildings that we have in various parts of the world that seem to be older than the officially recognized timeline of human history, not to mention the strange windows and doorways that seem to have no practical purpose found on many of the suspected buildings.
Things that us humans weren't meant to see. The oldest human ever photographed, Conrad Heyer, born in 1749, was 102 years old when he was photographed in 1852. You're looking at a man who would be 266 years old right now. The first photograph ever of a person, taken in 1838, you can see a man getting his shoes polished as he mistakenly became the first ever person to be photographed in history. The street was actually full of people. but the camera exposure was so long that he was the only one who stood still long enough to be captured. The earliest ever recorded sound of Big Ben, London 1890.
July the 16th, 1890, Fort made by Miss Fergus and Claire Hope.
The first ever photograph of lightning, taken on the 2nd of September 1882 in Philadelphia, USA.
Three Atlas has been spotted on a solar chronograph by an amateur astronomer by this name. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I'm probably going to butcher it. And in the past 7 days worth of footage have been observed by geophysicist Stefan Burns, which has produced this lovely little imagery here for us. And if you look above this square here, you can see 3 Atlas drifting towards the sun in the background. Now, pay attention to the amount of CMEs that get blown off in its general direction. And for those of you that have been following this channel, you know why this is happening. So 3 Atlas's outgassing is producing supercharged plasma particles, ionized particles that are interacting with our sun. The sun is mostly a positively charged object. Most terrestrial objects like rock, water and dust are negatively charged. Flares are basically a giant spark, like when a positive wire near a negative wire meets and just goes, basically blasts out all the energy. This is what's happening now. But to see it on a chronograph like this is unprecedented, and this is absolutely amazing to see. And the activity from the sun is blasting this bad boy to high.
The Book of Enoch was discovered when, like, an adventurer was looking for the source of the Nile River, and he found it, and it was somewhere in Ethiopia. He gets to know the locals there, and they're Ethiopian Jews that have been there for 3,000 years. They take him up to their, whatever you call it, their church, and he sees this giant book. And, you know, what's like a giant book? What's that? He said, that's the Bible. He said, oh, it's a Bible? They said, no, that's the Bible. You know, when the King James Bible, I don't know how many books it is, like 66 or something like that, where this had over 100 books. And in there were Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, all this other stuff. So you have Genesis that starts, basically let there be light. But in this expanded Bible, you have all this stuff that happened before then. So we know a little bit about Moses from the Bible, but if you read these other books, you learn all about Moses and Enoch and Methuselah, and these men are all related, and going back this like 10 or 12 generations from Adam, it's all in there. So this book is discovered, and they've had this for thousands of years. But then much later, the Dead Sea Scrolls are found. And then among the thousands of parchment there's the Book of Enoch, copies and copies of it, and the Book of Giants.
This is planet Mars, 140 million miles away from us.
When you look at the money, our dollar bill, of course, you'll see the pyramid. Why do you have an Egyptian pyramid on a dollar bill? And the words in Latin, most people are trying to earn a buck, they're not even looking at it. But if you look at the back of the dollar bill, it says Annuit Coeptus. And on the bottom, below the pyramid, it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, New Order of the World, the New World Order. And the Annuit Coeptus over the top simply means our enterprise is successful, or our enterprise has been crowned with success. And so what enterprise? The New World Order. The New World Order, the pyramid has 13 layers. Just as the 13 stars, there are 13 feathers, there are 13 stripes, and the shield, you'll see the American shield, that's what is called an American flag. The American flag, the stripes are going up and down. A United States flag, which is a corporation, it's a privately owned company, U.S. flag, the stripes go that way.
Did you know there's a 350-mile-long invisible line in England where ancient holy sites, stone circles, and UFO sightings line up perfectly? Check this out. Beginning in Cornwall, through to Glastonbury Tor, to Avebury and beyond. They call it the Mary and Michael's Pilgrim Way, a 350-mile path said to trace two energy lines, one masculine and the other feminine. But here's where it gets weird. Many of Britain's most active UFO hotspots sit right on this line. Bodmin Moor, Glastonbury, Warminster where I lived and I've witnessed many of stuff myself, even the crop circle fields near Avebury. The churches of St. Michael and St. Mary mark where these energies supposedly cross. Light and dark, earth and sky. And some call it coincidence, others think it's a highway, not just for pilgrims but for something else. And for thousands of years, there has been major reports of spiritual experiences taking place, cryptids, UFOs, triangular craft, boomerangs, glowing orbs, you name it, mate. The whole 9 yards has happened along this section and still gets reported to this day. Now, there is literally thousands of sites along this road, from like churches, burial mounds, stone circles, you name it. Everything is along this line. And it makes you wonder, did our ancients know a lot more than what we know today? Lost knowledge, if you will. And is there an energy to be harnessed there?
We are not in 2025. Month comes from the word moon, moonth. The moon has a 28-day moon cycle. 365 divided by 28 is 13. 13 lunar cycles every year, which means our calendar has a missing month, which means we don't know what year we're actually in. This is gonna blow your mind. The sky is a clock. The sun tells the time of the day. The moon tells the day of the month. The stars tell you the month of the year. The sky above our head is intelligent. Everything on earth is matter. Everything above us is spirit. That's why they're floating. They're not rocks you can land on. Gregorian calendar was made for slaves. Calendar comes from calends, the first day of the month the Romans had to pay off their debt. So what does all of this actually mean, and why did they do it? They made this fake calendar to cut off our connection with our celestial intelligence above and keep our mind, body and spirit out of rhythm with these cycles. We must live in harmony with the cycles above us. You can create abundance in your life with using the moon to your advantage. All of my students know this.
They were looking at something ancient, but the question was just exactly how ancient. On July 11th, a young astronomer named Matthew Hopkins stood at the podium at the UK National Astronomy meeting. He had an answer that was about to stun everybody. The room was packed with fellow astronomers who were all very eager to know more about this bizarre cosmic visitor, and he was about to present his team's analysis of this visitor, which now officially had a name: 3I Atlas, the third interstellar object. Hopkins clicked to his first slide, which showed the trajectory of the 3I Atlas through our solar system. Nothing about this was strange because it just showed an arc that would bring it close to the sun and then fling it back out to space. Then came the next one though, and this one showed the object's path not through our solar system but through the entire galaxy, and now things are getting interesting. As it turns out, Hopkins and his entire team didn't trace the object's path backwards. They traced it way back and accounted for all the gravitational pull of stars and even the rotation of the galaxy itself. This object was not moving in the same plane as most stars. It was coming from what astronomers call the thick disk of the Milky Way. It's actually different from where our own sun lives. We're in the thin disk, where most of the younger stars are all rotating around the galaxy in a relatively flat plane, but this one, the thick disk, is much older. It's said to be populated by ancient stars that formed when the galaxy was young. Hopkins clicked to the next slide and presented a number to his audience that was sure to change everything. 10 billion years. The room was stunned, with Hopkins going on to explain that based on the object's trajectory, velocity, and its apparent origin in the thick disk, they estimated it to be about 10 billion years old. Maybe older than that, which would make this object possibly the oldest comet ever observed in our entire history.
Okay, let's read the rest of Revelation 16, which is the vials of God's wrath. It's the last and the most severe of God's punishments on the earth. And it says, "And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, 'Go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth.' And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth. And there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. And the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as the blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the waters say, 'Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and wast and shalt be, because thou hast judged thus. For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy.' And I heard another out of the altar say, 'Even so, Lord God Almighty, true and righteous are thy judgments.' And the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. And men were scorched with great heat, and blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues. And they repented not to give him glory. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked, and they see his shame. He gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven, from the throne, saying, 'It is done.' And there were voices, and thunders, and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake, and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great." Okay, so that's the rest of the vials and the plagues that come with it. Very similar to some of the plagues that God acted upon the earth in Exodus. All right, so let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to read from Revelation, and God bless.
Saudi Arabia has just shocked the world by releasing the first look at their upcoming city called The Line. They are quite literally in the works of creating an entire city which is stacked 500 meters high, making it taller than the Empire State, stretching it out a staggering 170 kilometers in length, which for perspective would take the average human over 40 hours to walk, and then housing all of that in a mirrored glass wall. This linear city will eventually be home to a whopping 9 million residents, and the suburbs are essentially segments along this line which, and this is the crazy part, are organized in 3 dimensions. And because of that added third dimension, depth, everything you need in your daily life, such as your home, work, schools, shopping, are all within these 5-minute walk neighborhoods. And if you want to go visit Matey down the line, all of their services will operate with AI and run autonomously, making it possible to travel from one side all the way to the other in just 20 minutes. And because there will be no need for cars, the city will have 0 carbon emissions, and their energy and water supplies will be 100% renewable. In fact, they are so confident in their design, they had the audacity to create a model of what New York would look like if they adopted the same infrastructure as the line. They've also strategically located this city so that 40% of the world can travel there in just a 6-hour flight, and is surrounded by both the ocean and mountains, giving the residents immediate access to nature. And just to make things even crazier, the line is just one of the 3 projects that Saudi Arabia are working on, which of course I'll be making separate videos about. And while there's no official release date for when this could be complete, the line is a large part of the country's Vision 2030 program. So the question is this somewhere you would want to live?
Oh, you already know we gotta talk about this. Giant megastructures found beneath the pyramids of Giza. You heard that right. Long lost civilization kinda confirmed. I really wonder if debunkers ever get tired of being wrong. Let's summarize everything about this find so far. I waited long enough before talking about it so enough info could come out and we could find out what's really going on. On March 16th, 2025, a conference was held in Italy discussing some new findings about the pyramids of Giza using a revolutionary non-invasive scanning technology called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast. Or SAR for short. It's sort of like an X-ray radar type scanner that uses sound waves to penetrate the surface and see what's beneath it. And they found something beneath the middle pyramid of Khafre at the Giza Plateau, which initiated the Khafre project. The new scans show massive cylindrical structures that extend from the bottom of the pyramids way deep down into the bedrock below the surface. Pillars that appear to have some sort of wrapping coils or maybe pathways around them and go 648 meters underground. That's taller than the CN Tower, the Empire State Building, double the height of the Eiffel Tower, not to mention over 4 times the height of the pyramid itself. This is how it would look like to scale. At the very bottom of these pillars are 2 huge 80 by 80 meter cubes, which are said to go down even further, reaching up to 2 kilometers beneath the surface. 2 kilometers. That's 1.25 miles down for all you Americans. The scans show there to be at least 8 of these cylindrical wells arranged in 2 rows, and just completely blows our understanding of dynastic Egyptians out of the water. The crazy conspiracy nuts may have been right this entire time. Now, what's really special about these synthetic aperture radar scans that led to this discovery is that they can be taken from a satellite. Unlike traditional ground penetrating radar, which also shows us X-ray-like scans of what's beneath the surface, which requires the equipment to be used on the ground and would hence also need special permission to be used in these ancient sites of interest. And we know ancient sites like Giza are very heavily guarded by certain gatekeepers. These can be taken from satellites in orbit or even drones in the sky, meaning they have free range to scan virtually anywhere in the world, and don't require permission from the authorities of those ancient sites to investigate them, potentially ushering in a new era of independent researchers of those ancient sites that would have otherwise not been allowed to do so. We do have LiDAR drones which can take scans of the surface from the air, but those can't penetrate to see what's underground. This SAR technology was previously mainly used on volcanoes and other natural geological formations, but these guys right here, Filippo Biondi and Corrado Malanga, have brought it into the archaeological world, which they use not only to see what's under the Giza Plateau, but create 3D models of the pyramids as well, revealing 5 more previously unheard of chambers along the base of the Pyramid of Khafre, each with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. The same structure as the main King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, 5 more of which were now found in another pyramid. These 5 chambers appear to be connected by intricate pathways right above the 8 vertical pillars, and is why some believe the spirals may perhaps be staircases. The researchers behind this discovery themselves claim these structures are not only below the middle pyramid, but the entire Giza Plateau, with a complex underground network of structures, pathways, and chambers that interconnect all of the main pyramids, including Khafre, Khufu, and Menkaure, which, reminder, the data suggests may reach down up to 2 kilometers below the surface. This is insane. Was this meme right the entire time? Now, these 3D renderings of the structures are just artistic depictions based on the data and may not actually look anything like this. It's just a guess. But regardless of how they really look, there is just no way that dynastic Egyptians 4,000 years ago or even more could have built anything as sophisticated and enormous as this using the technology we know they had at the time. Given how incredibly monumental and complex these structures are, there's also no way these would have been built for aesthetic or even ritualistic purposes. Everyone agrees something like this would have been built for a more functional, perhaps a mechanical or even energy-related function, like the Giza power plant theory. A theory that suggests the pyramids harnessed the natural vibrations of the earth and converted them into energy used by the Egyptian Empire, or a more advanced civilization that existed there far, far before them. Christopher Dunn's Giza power plant theory does suggest there was some sort of mechanism that captured the natural resonances of the earth deep below the pyramids, which were then converted through a series of chambers and special processes to produce energy. And I mean, what better way to capture Earth's vibrational energy than by going 2 kilometers down below the surface, transmitting it upwards into the pyramids through long cylindrical wells with pathways that wrap around them that do seem to somewhat resemble a Tesla coil, a known transmitter of electricity, linking it to Nikola Tesla's attempt to capture energy from deep within the earth and transmit it wirelessly around the world for free through his Wardenclyffe Tower project, which he made no secret was inspired by the pyramids that he believed held a similar function, suggesting this could be further evidence that the pyramids were once in fact part of an ancient global energy grid. A crazy nonsense fringe theory that this find sorta does support. The researchers behind this find themselves suggest that a vast underground city exists beneath the pyramids and is exactly what we're looking at with their scans, where the legendary Hall of Records of lost pre-Atlantean knowledge is rumored to be found, and they even insist these structures could be up to 38,000 years old. Myths of underground cities beneath the Giza Plateau and the Sphinx have been circulating for centuries. We've even caught glimpses of incredible finds deep beneath the surface of Egypt, only for them to get closed up and swept under the rug all the time, like the discovery of chambers beneath the Sphinx that leading Egyptian authorities like Zahi Hawass himself bragged about and then later denied. Or the Tomb of the Birds, NC2, just off to the side, believed to be an entrance to this underground complex, but is now of course sealed and off limits. I don't think I even need to tell you that Egyptologists like Zahi Hawass and all your favorite internet Google debunkers are all calling this find complete nonsense, based on the fact that the abstract this discovery was based on was from an independent research team and not peer-reviewed, so therefore it must not be real. And you already know that even if it does get peer-reviewed by the experts, they're just gonna vehemently deny it like they've done with any other find of this nature. Also claiming that the SAR scanning technology is too new, isn't very accurate, and doesn't even go that deep. So the team actually tested it on the Osiris shaft, a known subterranean tunnel system in the Giza Plateau. And well, it was pretty accurate, mapping the shaft to a high level of detail, which we can confirm is what it actually looks like. SAR doesn't seem to be as unreliable as they claim. Through this test scan, they even stumbled upon what they claim to be an unopened sarcophagus deep in the Osiris shaft, among many other new, previously unheard of tunnels. Seriously, it's like every time someone scans something in the Giza Plateau, they find something new. Discoveries like these that completely shatter the narrative and go against everything that archaeology has been preaching for years does kind of require outside independent researchers to come in and shake things up, instead of relying on the jaded career archaeologists who have been taught and teach a certain paradigm for their entire lives. The next step here would be to go on the ground and perform more in-depth scans with ground-penetrating radar to get a better picture of what's really going on. But there's just one thing you'd need in order to do that: permission from the gatekeepers. And somehow I don't think they're gonna let anyone do that anytime soon, because every time we do make a discovery like this, it gets mocked, downplayed, and swept over, just like Göbekli Tepe, another narrative-altering ancient site they're excavating at a snail's pace and outright destroying it in the process. If there really were powers that be who want to control a certain narrative, it would be for good reason. They want to keep the public calm and in control. But if that's the case, discoveries like these will always get debunked, and anyone who supports them will get mocked and get called liars and frauds, as I'm sure my beloved debunkers are in the comments. In my opinion, it's our duty as independent thinkers to always question what we're told is real and keep our minds open, or we'll forever live blinded to what's really out there.